My name is Camila. I'm 31 years old. The room smelled like toner, burnt coffee, and old ambition. That particular kind of Monday morning air. Heavy, recycled, and slightly metallic from the vents that never shut off over the weekend. The hum of the projector behind me made the glass walls tremble faintly, turning reflections into watery shapes. Someone had left a half-eaten muffin near the whiteboard, blueberry crumbs scattered like ash on a paper plate. I sat at the edge of the table, tapping my pen lightly against my notepad, a rhythm only I could hear. It wasn't nerves exactly. It was focus, control disguised as habit. Around me, chairs squeaked as the team settled in, murmurs fading when Danielle, my manager, took her seat at the head of the table. Department updates, end-of-quarter targets, revenue breakdowns, the usual corporate symphony of jargon and fake enthusiasm. My section came third on the agenda. I'd stayed up till 2:30 polishing the deck. Clean layout, bold typography, tight data. I'd even chosen a deep blue gradient for the slides, subtle but strong. My kind of confidence. When Andrew finished his endless analytics recap, the room dimmed slightly. Not completely, just enough to make everyone glance upward. Danielle smiled her performative smile, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. All right, let's keep it rolling. Camila, you're up next, right? I stood, smoothed the front of my blouse. The projector flickered behind me as I adjusted my blazer. My throat felt dry, but not from fear, more like the pause before a storm. I clicked my remote. The first slide waited on the screen, my title in bold white. Then the sound came. A sharp crackle. Not from my laptop, not from the projector, from the ceiling speakers. At first it was a faint hiss, the kind that makes people glance around without real concern. But then I heard it. My own voice. I just think she's insecure, you know? Like, everything has to be a competition for her. It took me 3 full seconds to recognize it. My tone, my pacing, exactly the same as the voice note I'd sent to Maya last Thursday after happy hour. The kind of note you send when you're tired, venting, never meant to leave the privacy of a chat bubble. A ripple of laughter started near the window. Not cruel, but sharp enough to slice through the air. Someone whispered something under their breath, and another person stifled a chuckle. I felt my heart pound once, not fast, just heavy. I turned, scanning faces. Some looked down at their notepads, others smiled faintly, pretending to check their phones. And then there was Courtney, front row, head of the table, perfectly composed. Her smirk was slow, deliberate, blooming like a secret she was proud of. She didn't laugh. She didn't need to. That smirk said it all. Gotcha. The voice note continued. She acts like she invented PowerPoint. I swear if I have to sit through one more of her dragged-out budget proposals. I swallowed hard. My pen stopped tapping. The air felt thick enough to touch. Danielle shifted awkwardly. Someone coughed. The laughter died, leaving behind an uncomfortable hum of tension. Courtney tilted her head slightly, feigning confusion. Her French manicured fingers tapped the side of her glittery pink tumbler, the one she carried everywhere like a trophy. The faint click, click, click filled the silence. My knees didn't shake. I kept my stance. One hand on the edge of the table, steady, grounded. Inside, though, it felt like glass cracking beneath weight. Thin, invisible fractures. The projector flickered again. Then everything went dark. A full blackout. A few gasps. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" Another voice said, "Breaker blue?" In the dark, the only sound was the fading hum of machines powering down, printers, monitors, the air conditioner sighing into silence. My reflection disappeared from the glass. For the first time that morning, no one was watching me. I didn't move. This was the moment. Because that blackout? It wasn't random. It was mine. The IT reset had been scheduled under a maintenance ticket I filed 2 days ago, disguised as routine network optimization. I'd set it for exactly 10:28 a.m., a 5-minute reboot cycle. 5 minutes of silence before everything changed. Courtney thought she'd humiliated me, thought she'd won. But when the system rebooted, it wouldn't play her edited file again. It would play mine, the uncut voice note, the original, with full metadata intact, including her name on the file transfer log. I'd found it last night while combing through the shared folder history. The timestamp was hers. The edit trail was sloppy, a rookie mistake. So I waited, still, calm, my heart a slow drumbeat against my ribs. When the emergency lights flickered back on, the room glowed in pale green strips. Faces looked ghostly under the glow, confused, irritated. Danielle pressed her phone's flashlight against the table. "Everyone okay?" Someone laughed nervously. Someone else said, "This place is cursed." I just stood there, letting the silence stretch. Then came the low beep, the sound of the backup system booting. A faint chime followed, like a countdown only I could hear. One by one, the green LEDs blinked back to life across the wall-mounted panel. Courtney tried to maintain her calm. She crossed her arms, tapping her foot lightly, the rhythm betraying her nerves. Her smirk was still there, but smaller now, edges fraying. The projector whirred back on, light cutting through the dim room like a blade. Blue glow flooded the table, scattering reflections across half-empty coffee cups and open laptops. A few seconds of static. Then, playback. But not hers. The real file. My voice note. Unedited, I thought, feeling a slow burn in my chest. Let's see how brave she feels. Now. It started the same way. Same tone, same first few words, then the rest. The part she'd cut out. I just think she's insecure, you know? Like, everything has to be a competition for her. But honestly, I can't even blame her. Danielle's been pitting us against each other for weeks, and Courtney's just playing along. I shouldn't have said half the things I did, but she's been leaking everyone's numbers. She's the one who told HR about the overtime thing. The room fell silent. Every face turned toward Courtney. Even Danielle's forced composure cracked, her eyes widening in disbelief. Courtney's lips parted, but no sound came out. The playback continued, revealing timestamps, metadata, and the final audio tag, forwarded by Courtney L. 9:52 p.m. It was like time folded in on itself. The hum of the machines faded, the air still, the only movement the slow rotation of the projector fan. When the clip ended, there was no laughter, no whispers, just breathing, shallow, uneven. Courtney looked at me then, really looked. The smirk was gone. Her mouth trembled slightly, as if forming an excuse that wouldn't come. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. Because this wasn't about revenge in the loud, fiery sense. It was about precision, quiet control, making sure that when justice landed, it landed on its own, clean, undeniable, and public. Danielle broke the silence first. "Courtney," she said carefully, "we'll discuss this after the meeting." But everyone knew the meeting was over. The projector blinked, the system reverting to the original dashboard. My slides appeared again, untouched, waiting for me to begin. "Go ahead, Camilla," Danielle murmured, her tone hollow. "You can start your presentation." I took a slow breath, stepped forward, and clicked the remote. "Sure," I said. "Let's keep it rolling." And for the first time all morning, my voice filled the room. Steady, deliberate, unbroken. Outside, the city buzzed through glass and steel. Inside, the balance had shifted. They thought they'd buried me in embarrassment. Instead, I'd built my foundation there. The lights were fully back now, warm and clear. Courtney's reflection wavered on the glass wall, small, diminished. I began my pitch. The same deck, the same data. But everything felt different. Every word carried weight now. Every slide clicked forward like a declaration. By the time I finished, no one spoke. Even Danielle's usual nod was late, uncertain. I gathered my notes, slid the pen behind my ear, and turned toward the door. My heels echoed on the polished floor, sharp and even. They laughed when I walked out. They didn't know I was walking away with everything. The projector rebooted with a high-pitched whine, a thin electric cry that made the glass walls hum. A streak of static blue cut across the far wall, shaking faintly before flattening into color. Someone near the coffee stand muttered, "There it goes," in that half-joking tone people use when they don't understand what's really happening. They thought it was just another glitch, a Monday malfunction. It wasn't. Danielle leaned forward, frowning at the laptop, her tone clipped, but still trying to sound in control. "Does anyone know where the remote is? I swear it was here 10 minutes ago." She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, tapping the touchpad repeatedly, her nails clicking against the surface. The faint smell of burnt plastic lingered from the surge. No one answered. Across the table, Courtney sat frozen. Her posture looked casual, but I could see her fingers tightening around her glittery pink tumbler. Her knuckles whitened slightly. She hadn't blinked in at least 30 seconds. That small detail, the stillness, was louder than the hum in the room. The screen stayed blue a little longer, then black, then gray. Then the voice returned. Mine. But not the version she'd sliced apart and weaponized. Not the one she'd uploaded to the company speakers to humiliate me. The real one. "I just think she's insecure, you know? Like, everything has to be a competition for her. And I hate that it makes me feel small. Because last year, when she lost that account, I stayed late helping her fix it. I didn't tell anyone. I never would." It was my voice. Steady, exhausted, human. The kind of tone that carried truth, not malice. Someone gasped, not loud, but enough to shift the atmosphere, like air pressure changing before a storm. The laughter that had filled the room earlier had vanished completely. You could hear chair legs scrape softly, fabric rustle, even the faint buzz of the fluorescent tubes overhead trying to stabilize. I didn't move. My arms hung naturally by my sides, palms open, calm. I didn't smile, didn't smirk. This wasn't a performance. I wanted them to hear, not for revenge, but for truth to reclaim its space. The playback continued. "And I only said all that to Maya because I thought it was private. I'd never say it at work. That's not who I am." Then came a sharp electronic beep. A pause, another beep. And then, another voice. A digital one. Cold. Automated. "Courtney JTX. File transfer successful." The sound echoed through the speakers, metallic and final. Danielle's breath caught audibly. Then the screen flickered again, and yellow text appeared over the gray background. "File created. Friday, 7:14 p.m. Edited Saturday, 2:03 a.m. Exported Sunday morning, 8:56 a.m. Sender, Courtney J. TX, Meteorize.com." The glow of the projector cast those words across every face. I saw reflections of it dancing on the polished table, over coffee cups, notebooks, pens, over Courtney's frozen hands. Silence. She slowly set her tumbler down, the metal bottom making a soft clink against the glass tabletop. Her fingers lingered on it for a moment before retreating to her lap. Danielle broke first. "Wait! What is this?" Her voice was higher now, thin with disbelief. No one answered. Then the next audio file began to play. A new recording. Not mine. Courtney's. Her voice slurred slightly, tired, maybe drunk, maybe careless. The words stumbled out in a way only alcohol can loosen. "She makes everything so dramatic. You know what? I'm gonna clip this part and let them hear it on Monday. Just the good bit. She deserves it." The words dropped one by one, heavy and slow, like stones into still water. A long silence followed, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was revulsion. I could feel it move across the room like a current, the turning of heads, the soft exhale of someone trying not to react too loudly, the weight of realization, how deliberate it all was. I didn't turn to look at her. I kept my gaze forward on the shifting blue light against the wall. Danielle's voice came next, quiet but sharp at the edges. "Courtney, is that—" Courtney stood suddenly. The chair legs screeched across the tile. "Okay, look, that is completely taken out of—" A calm, firm voice interrupted her. "Courtney, stop." Everyone turned. I hadn't even noticed Sarah from HR sitting in the back row, her notepad closed neatly on her lap. She stood now, expression unreadable, tone professional. The kind of composure that comes from practice, from cleaning up other people's disasters. She held a printed folder in one hand. Her movements were deliberate, methodical. "Courtney Johnson," she said clearly, "we're pausing this meeting pending internal investigation. Please gather your belongings." The words hit like a cold slap. Final. Procedural. Courtney blinked rapidly. "Wait. What? You can't just— Now, please." Sarah's voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. The authority in it filled the room. Courtney looked around, searching for an ally. Danielle avoided her eyes. Andrew busied himself with his pen. The rest stayed perfectly still, afraid of association. Then she looked at me. For a moment, I thought she might say something, but her lips only parted before pressing shut again. She exhaled, grabbed her tumbler, then hesitated. The hand that had once been so steady trembled slightly as she placed it inside her tote bag. She packed her things slowly, her mouse, her charger, the blue suede laptop sleeve embossed with CJ in gold. Each item handled with care, as if neatness could restore dignity. Someone near the door cleared their throat quietly, a sound that seemed to echo longer than it should have. Courtney stood fully, slinging the bag over her shoulder. Her perfume drifted faintly in the air, sweet, floral, suddenly out of place in that sterile room. When she walked past the long glass wall, I noticed her reflection beside mine, hers smaller now, blurred by the projector light. As she reached the doorway, she turned slightly, looking back. Just once! Her mascara had smudged under her lower lashes, a faint black line tracing fatigue and shock. I didn't smile, but I didn't look away either. Our eyes held for a single, unbroken second, the kind of look that says you know exactly what you did. And then she left. The door shut behind her with a heavy, muffled click that seemed to seal something permanent. The hum of the projector returned softly, filling the quiet like a memory refusing to fade. The login screen glowed blankly on the wall, awaiting new credentials, a reset, a fresh start. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the faint buzz of the air vents kicking back on, the smell of overheated wires still lingering. I let out a slow breath. No triumph, no gloating. Just release. Because in that silence, I understood something. Power isn't in proving someone wrong. It's in standing so still they realize they've already undone themselves. I reached for my notepad, wrote a small line across the corner, then closed it. My hand didn't shake. My pulse had finally evened out. When Danielle finally spoke, her voice was low, cautious. "Camilla, we'll debrief later. For now, thank you for handling yourself professionally." I nodded once. Of course. And that was it. No dramatic applause, no cinematic ending. Just quiet truth laid bare under fluorescent light. As the others began to pack up in silence, I stayed behind for a moment, letting the hum of the room settle into memory. The faint vibration of the projector against the wall. The weight of all those eyes that had once mocked me, now unsure where to look. Then I walked out. The hallway light was softer, warmer. My heels clicked steadily against the tile. I could see the reflection of the conference room door closing behind me, the nameplate glinting faintly in the overhead light. And I thought, sometimes revenge doesn't need flames. Sometimes it just needs clarity. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, she was gone. No whisper, no footsteps behind the glass, only the low mechanical hum of the HVAC, filling the silence like a ghost still lingering in the room. The projector gave one last tired whine, the bulb cooling down with a faint crackle before the sound faded into stillness. Danielle stood near the head of the table, motionless. Her mouth hung slightly open, as if she might say something, but the words never found her. Her eyes flicked between the wall, where the screen had gone dark, and Sarah from HR, who was still holding her folder like a badge of finality. No one dared speak, not yet. The air felt fragile, like one wrong sound could shatter it. Then, quietly, the projector's screensaver came on, a pale blue company logo pulsing slowly across the wall, breathing in and out like a heartbeat in the dark. Its rhythm filled the void, hypnotic, mechanical. indifferent. Someone coughed softly. It broke the spell. The tension cracked open all at once. Danielle straightened, tugging at her blazer sleeve as if reassembling authority piece by piece. "Okay," she said, her voice a fraction too high. I think we're done for today. Everyone, take the rest of the morning." The room came alive again, chairs scraping, mugs being gathered, bags zipping. People moved with the chaotic politeness of those desperate to look busy. Screens lit up, phones unlocked. But no one was actually reading anything. They just needed something to do with their hands. I sat still, watching them. Their movements looked slow, rehearsed, like a scene looping from a training video. Maya brushed past me on her way to the door. Her voice was low, almost careful. "Camilla, are you okay?" I turned slightly toward her and nodded once. Not a full one, just enough. My throat felt thick. Words would have cracked. She hesitated, searching my face, then gently squeezed my arm. Her touch lingered for half a second, warm, grounding. Then she walked out. The rest followed quickly. Too quickly, like the room was contaminated with something none of them wanted to catch. Their eyes darted toward the exit, but never toward me. Not one person met my gaze. Within 2 minutes, the space was empty except for Sarah. She waited until the hallway chatter faded before she moved closer, heels soft against the carpet. She set her folder down on the glass table, the pages inside whispering as they settled. "Camilla," she said quietly, "that file, the metadata, that wasn't a coincidence, was it?" I looked up at her. No. Her lips pressed together, not in disapproval, but in thought. She studied me for a long moment, eyes sharp yet kind. "You filed that maintenance ticket," she said, not a question anymore. I nodded again. She exhaled slowly, like someone letting out the last bit of tension they'd been holding in their shoulders. Her expression softened, not angry, not even surprised, just impressed. "I'm not here to judge the method," she said finally. "Just glad the truth came out." She placed the folder in front of me, her hand lingering on it for a beat. "This is for you," she continued. "You'll want to read the incident report before the formal HR review. There'll be a follow-up with Danielle next week. But, for now, take a breath." She turned to leave, then paused, halfway to the door. "For what it's worth," she added, her tone gentler now. I heard the full note. All of it. "You weren't cruel. You were honest. There's a difference." Then she left, closing the door softly behind her. I didn't move for another full minute. The silence felt heavier now, but not suffocating, like the air after rain. Finally, I let myself exhale. A long, slow breath that rattled slightly at the end, shaking loose the pressure I'd carried for weeks. Because the truth was, this hadn't started with that voice note. That was only the spark. The fuel had been collecting long before. It began 3 months earlier. Courtney had always been competitive. It was part of her brand. But something changed after I got assigned the Fremont pitch. Everyone wanted it. It was high profile, the kind of campaign that could make or break a promotion list. She'd been circling it for weeks, dropping hints, making herself visible in every meeting. But they gave it to me. I earned it. Late nights, clean data. A pitch deck so polished it practically breathed on its own. I didn't just present, I performed. I knew the numbers, the client's language, the subtext behind every question. And we landed the deal. That was the shift. After that, her smiles started thinning. The friendly office banter evaporated. When I passed her in the hallway, she'd glance away, pretending to be on her phone. Little things, invisible to most, but I noticed. Then came the small sabotages. A forgotten reply on an email thread that made me look unresponsive. A misplaced spreadsheet right before a client check-in. Once, she accidentally forwarded a rough draft of my presentation to the client instead of the final version. She'd apologized, of course, dramatically, publicly. "Oh my God, Camilla, I feel awful. Totally my fault." She'd placed a hand on her heart for effect. People laughed it off. Mistakes happen. But her eyes always gave her away. There was a flicker in them, a calculation. I didn't confront her. I wanted to believe it was pressure, or insecurity, or maybe just the grind making everyone brittle. I told myself to be professional, to rise above it, but when the voice note leaked, I knew. It wasn't clumsiness. It was strategy. It was war. That night, after the humiliation, I'd gone home and sat in the dark, replaying every sound from that meeting, the laughter, the whispers, the fake pity. And in that silence, something inside me hardened. Not into anger, into precision, because revenge isn't rage. Rage burns too fast. It gives you away. Precision waits. So I stayed quiet. I smiled in meetings. I volunteered for extra reports. I laughed at her jokes. I even complimented her shoes. I let her think she'd broken me. Meanwhile, I rebuilt everything. I recovered the original voice file from Maya's cloud backup. Maya, who had saved it automatically without realizing. I compared the metadata. The timestamps didn't match. Courtney's edit had left fingerprints all over the code. Then I called my friend Leo, an old college buddy who now worked in IT for a fintech firm in Seattle. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. Hypothetically, I'd said, if someone edited a company audio file and wanted to hide the original metadata, how could someone, hypothetically, prove it? He'd paused, then laughed softly. You'd be amazed how many people don't realize the metadata sticks around even after export, especially if the system auto-backs up versions. He'd guided me through it, how to trace logs, how to locate the transfer trail. 2 days later, I had everything. Then I filed the maintenance request under a dummy vendor account, Apex Technical Systems. Fake logo, fake ticket number, real access. I scheduled it precisely for 10:28 a.m. Monday. And then I waited. 3 weeks. 3 long weeks of pretending. Every day, I came in like nothing had happened, smiling, taking notes, letting Courtney snicker at lunch with her little entourage. They'd glance at me and whisper, all soft laughter and smug glances. Let them. I was listening. Every insult they whispered, every rumor that flickered through the office, I stored it away. Patience, I told myself, isn't silence. It's setup. And when the day came, the blackout, the playback, the silence that followed, I didn't just expose her. I rewrote the entire narrative. Now, sitting there in that empty conference room, with the hum of machines winding down and Sarah's folder beside me, I realized something simple but sharp. You don't always need to fight back loudly. Sometimes you just let the truth speak in your own voice, on your own timing. And that was the most powerful sound of all. That night, I didn't go home right away. The city felt too close, too artificial, glass, steel, and noise pressing in on all sides. I needed distance, space to breathe. So I drove, past the blinking office towers, past the glowing fast food signs, until the skyline thinned into shadow. The farther I went, the quieter the world became. The road stretched straight and endless, cutting through the frozen sprawl of Illinois farmland. The gas tank warning light blinked at me, a soft amber pulse on the dashboard. I pulled into a lonely roadside station, the kind that looked forgotten by time. An old Coke machine hummed faintly near the door, its paint faded to pink around the edges. The air smelled like diesel, rain-soaked gravel and cold metal. I filled the tank in silence. The hose clicked in rhythm with my heartbeat. The attendant inside glanced up once through the window but didn't bother to wave. Just another late-night stranger passing through. Inside, I poured myself a cup of coffee from a pot that had clearly been sitting for hours. It tasted burnt, metallic, almost chemical, but it was warm, and that was enough. I carried it back to the car, set it on the dash, and just sat there for a while. The heater hummed softly, fogging the windshield in uneven clouds. Outside, the fields lay still, endless rows of darkness interrupted only by the thin white glint of frost. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt. I was. The kind of hurt that doesn't roar. It settles, heavy and quiet, somewhere deep under the ribs. But there were no tears left for her, no rage either, no satisfaction, just stillness. Courtney was gone. When I passed her desk earlier that afternoon, it had already been cleared out. The dual monitors wiped clean, no sticky notes, no personal photos. The nameplate was missing, just a faint rectangle of dust where it used to sit. There was no goodbye message, no farewell email full of fake cheer, just absence, cold and absolute. Danielle sent out a department memo at 3:17 p.m., written in that sanitized corporate tone everyone recognizes but no one believes. We take employee privacy seriously. Behavior that compromises trust will not be tolerated. Let's continue to foster a supportive work environment. No one mentioned my name. No one had to. By the next morning, people spoke to me differently, softer, more careful, like I was a glass door they didn't want to close too hard. The office, usually full of overlapping chatter and clinking coffee spoons, felt quieter. Conversations paused when I walked by, not rudely, just uncertainly. Eyes darted, smiles flickered and disappeared. I could almost hear the unspoken questions hiding behind every polite "good morning." Maya, bless her, didn't change. On Wednesday, she left a container of soup on my desk, a thick, homemade chicken noodle, the kind she made when anyone got sick or sad. A sticky note clung to the lid. "Still proud of you." It made me smile, really smile, for the first time all week. I scribbled back on the note before she left for lunch. "Thanks for not leaking the whole soup recipe." She burst out laughing when she saw it. The sound filled the space between us like light through blinds. I laughed too. For a moment, everything felt normal. But normal wasn't what I wanted anymore. Something had shifted, not just around me, but inside me. For years, I'd been spending energy keeping peace with people who didn't deserve my silence, pretending indifference to stay professional, letting people cross lines and calling it diplomacy. I'd learned to survive by being small, but that night, sitting in that parking lot with the coffee cooling between my palms, I realized something simple and sharp. I didn't want to survive anymore. I wanted to lead, and not by waiting for permission. When I drove back to the city, the roads gleamed under the streetlights, thin lines of silver cutting through the dark. I rolled the windows down halfway, let the cold air sting my face awake. It felt cleansing. By the time I reached my apartment, my decision was already made. The next night, after everyone had gone home, I stayed late. The office was a different place at night, quiet, hollow, almost honest. Without people, the building lost its pretense. The hum of the vending machine echoed like static in a cathedral. The carpet smelled faintly of old coffee and ozone from the printers. I walked into conference room 3A, the same room where everything had happened. The projector light was off now, but I could still see faint stains on the carpet, the ghost of the day it all fell apart. I sat at the table and opened a blank document on the company laptop. Not a pitch, not another campaign. A proposal. Title: Internal Communication Security and Privacy Restructure. Phase 1, I started typing. Line by line, my hands steadier than they'd been in months. Encrypted file sharing protocols, department-level message auditing, secure cloud migration, role-based permission controls. It wasn't just policy, it was armor. Not for me, for the next woman, the next employee who'd make the mistake of trusting someone she shouldn't have to fear. By midnight, the framework was done. I reread it twice, trimmed the language, formatted it clean. The last sentence was simple, because silence shouldn't be the price of survival. The next morning, I slid the proposal into Danielle's inbox before our 9 a.m. call. She approved it in less than a week. Sarah from HR backed it immediately, adding a note. Implementation priority, high. The company not only accepted it, they celebrated it. My inbox filled with congratulations. The regional VP forwarded my document to 2 other branches with a subject line that read, "A model for modern integrity." And just like that, my story changed. I wasn't the woman who got humiliated in a meeting anymore. I was the one who turned it into policy. That's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It's not about the moment they fall. It's about what you build in the silence that follows. The rise. The transformation. It's when you move so far beyond them they can't even reach your shadow. I didn't post about it on social media. didn't tell my story in some glossy LinkedIn post about resilience, didn't whisper Courtney's name to recruiters or slip details into casual conversations. But I did get an email 2 weeks later. Subject line, reference check for Courtney Johnson, from a mid-sized creative agency in Seattle. I stared at it for a long time. The cursor blinking beside my name felt like a heartbeat again. Then I clicked reply, typed one sentence. I recommend you speak with our HR department for a full understanding of her recent conduct. My finger hovered over the send button for 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. The screen flashed once. The email disappeared into the system, quiet, precise, final. Outside, the night traffic hummed like distant applause, and in that moment, I didn't feel like a victim or even a victor. I just felt free. 3 months later, I stood in that same conference room, but this time the light felt different, softer, cleaner. The afternoon sun spilled through the blinds, striping the floor with gold and shadow. The hum of the HVAC was steady, familiar, almost comforting now. It was a Friday afternoon, end of quarter. Someone had put up a few streamers that drooped by the vents. There were plastic cups, cheap paper plates, and the faint spicy scent of chili mixing with lemon bars and coffee. Laughter drifted from the break area in small bursts. Team lunch, potluck style. Danielle had brought her infamous lemon squares again, still overbaked, edges hard as armor. She laughed about it, called them her humble contribution. People smiled, the kind of polite warmth that comes easily when nothing is at stake. And I brought nothing but calm, because by then, silence no longer felt like exile. It was mine. It moved when I did. It filled spaces where I used to shrink. No one treated me like a victim anymore. No one lowered their voices when I walked by. The pity had evaporated, replaced by something else, respect, or maybe quiet recognition. Either way, it was enough. I had learned to measure progress differently, not in titles or applause, but in peace. The projector at the front of the room was on again, this time glowing soft white instead of that harsh, accusatory blue. A list of company highlights scrolled slowly down the screen. Someone had set instrumental jazz in the background, a detail that made the moment feel almost cinematic, like a closing scene. When the department restructure was officially announced, Danielle took the floor. Her tone was measured, proud but careful, as if she was still learning how to hold the new version of authority. She talked about growth, transparency, trust. Then she scrolled down to the new document templates and privacy frameworks, the ones I'd drafted in that room months earlier, alone under flickering lights. My name appeared near the bottom of the slide. Not bolded, not centered, just quietly there. Systems contributor, Camila Rios. The applause started small. A few polite claps. Then Maya stood, hands together, eyes shining. Sarah joined in right after. Even Danielle, steady, restrained, gave a slow, deliberate nod from across the room. It wasn't loud, but it was honest. And that's all I ever wanted. I didn't need recognition to taste victory. I just needed to know something lasting had come from it. Because sometimes the real revenge isn't the fall of the person who hurt you. It's the rebuild that happens quietly after, when the world expects you to stay broken. Some betrayals don't leave bruises. They leave silence. And sometimes, silence is louder than rage. After the meeting, the team scattered. The chatter softened into hallway echoes. The projector dimmed again, leaving faint rectangles of light on the walls. I lingered a little longer, just enough to hear the hum fade and the faint tick of the clock above the whiteboard. It felt like closure, not the cinematic kind, but the real one, the kind that arrives in stillness, without music, without an audience. That weekend, I reorganized my apartment, deleted old drafts, cleared out emails I'd saved for too long. There was peace in the deleting. It wasn't erasure. It was space. A week later, a new message appeared in my LinkedIn inbox. It was from a woman I didn't know. Her profile photo showed her in a cubicle lit by harsh overhead light. A corporate smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hi, Camilla." It began. "I heard what happened at Meteorize. I just went through something similar. They're trying to bury it. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing my mind." I stared at it for a while. The blinking cursor waited beneath her words, patient and desperate. Then I typed back, "You're not. Start documenting. Don't react publicly. Let them think you're frozen. That's when you're most powerful." I read it twice before hitting send. A few minutes later, she replied. First with a crying emoji, then a heart, then a single line. "Thank you." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I closed my laptop and leaned back in the chair. The window beside me rattled softly as the wind picked up. Outside, the city was shifting toward fall. Chicago autumn has its own sound. Wind brushing against glass, the scrape of leaves along the curb, the faint clang of street signs bending under gusts. That night, it felt like the world was exhaling. I pulled on my coat, buttoned it halfway, and stepped outside. The air was sharp and alive, the kind that wakes you from the inside out. As I crossed the lobby, I passed the community bulletin board near the elevators. Usually, I never looked. But something caught my eye this time. A flyer printed on plain white paper. Anonymous story circle. Women in tech spaces. Every Thursday. Room B12. There were tear-off tabs along the bottom with an email address. Only 2 were missing. I hesitated, then reached out and tore one off. The sound was small but satisfying, like a page turning. I folded it neatly, slipped it into my pocket. Not because I wanted to talk. I wasn't ready for that. But maybe someone else would be. Maybe someone needed to know that silence doesn't have to mean surrender. I walked out into the evening. The city lights flickered in puddles on the asphalt, the wind whipping my hair against my face. I could smell rain coming, that faint metallic scent before the first drop. For the first time in months, I didn't feel haunted by that room or by her voice. I didn't replay the humiliation. I didn't see Courtney's smirk or hear the laughter. All I felt was clarity, the kind that comes after the storm finally runs out of rain. I reached my car, unlocked it, and sat for a moment with my hands resting on the wheel. She had tried to turn my voice against me. She thought she could rewrite my story. But I learned something powerful. When someone tries to silence you, sometimes the loudest thing you can do is keep speaking. Calmly, consistently, until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. That's what I'd done. And somewhere in another office, maybe someone else would too. I turned the key, the engine humming softly beneath my hands. Streetlights blurred past as I drove, each one reflecting briefly in the rearview mirror before disappearing into darkness. By the time I hit the highway, I could see the city fading behind me, towers glowing like distant stars, disappearing one by one into the fog. I smiled to myself. Not the kind of smile that says, "I won." The kind that says, "I'm free." If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.